Well, we are live from, we're like two people in the witness protection program.
That,
We're
that's
not,
right. From somewhere in the United States.
well, everyone knows where I live
I guess.
in the great state of Massachusetts, but we'll keep your identity secret, I promise.
Thank you. I appreciate that. For now,
Yeah, you're in Alaska somewhere, right?
somewhere like that, or Hawaii. I don't know, one of those two places.
Oh, why it would be nice.
Yes.
Anyway, it looks like some people are actually joining now.
Yeah.
And just to add a little context, right? This
Mhm.
is a whole part of this. This has been a whole movement on my Road to 2000 campaign, and we met our first milestone of selling 100 books of my memoir,
Amazing.
and now, well, that's why we're having this conversation, because the first milestone is a one-on-one.
Yes. And I am one of those 100. So
You are,
happy to be part
um,
of that.
yeah, and not to make our dear friend Chris B. Wrights jealous, he will be on a live version, uh, as the 100th buyer.
Amazing.
Uh, yeah. It's funny how we met. How did we meet, by the way? And how did we start
Oh,
talking?
I feel like I saw you on Substack post something about shadow, and I thought your writing was beautiful. And I can't remember. I think we had some comments on each other's writing, and then at some point that carried over to DMs for a while through the app, and then you had a video to send me, so I gave you my cell phone, and it's kind of just grown from there.
And for the record, it wasn't the creepy video. I don't even know what kind
It
of.
was not a creepy video. There's been nothing creepy about it. I think, we share a um painful link, right? In some ways, anorexia linked us together initially, and recovery. And it's just kind of grown from there in a very organic way.
Yeah, and I'm curious. Like,
Yeah.
and you don't have to be kind. You know how suspicious I am of
I know,
compliments or
I know
nice
you don't
words.
like compliments, and I'm afraid you'll have to tolerate them probably today.
Oh, yeah, likely. Uh, much to my chagrin, Shadow over there is gonna file a petition, and unionize against compliment. Anyway, um, so you read the book as a therapist,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. Well, I didn't
And
read it as a therapist. I am a therapist. I definitely read it as just a person walking the path, but yes.
uh, I'll reframe the lens then. Like my book talks about a lot of heavy shit, right?
Yes.
And sorry for the language, but um, it's so I'm curious from your perspective as someone who works in the industry, mental health industry. Like,
Yeah.
what are your reactions?
Um, well, I thought it was beautiful, and brave and honest and authentic. And I think that is probably, I think what drew me in was was your authenticity, and that it felt like you were, um, very clear that you are still struggling, right? That recovery, whatever that means, has not been linear for you. And um, I guess the bottom line for me is I think that it's the authenticity that, one, will draw readers in, and two, will be helpful because you don't wrap anything up in a neat bow. But, and you don't always, there aren't always a lot of, there are details, but not always about the details. It's, you show your audience rather than tell your audience what your experience is. So I it was a feeling experience rather than an intellectual experience.
Mm,
Also, it was cool because I think, just sharing with people who are listening, I only read one chapter a day, right?
right.
some of that is because I fall asleep when I read,
I
and some
put you
of
to
that
sleep. I see. My
yeah,
writing is that
it's
boring.
not your it's not your writing, it's literally everybody's writing. Maybe I need a new prescription, but, um,
I'm teasing you, by the way.
it's also it's heavy, right, as you said, and that allowed me to digest each chapter, but also because we know each other, I got to talk with you about each chapter, which was a I've never had that experience with an author before. And so it felt particularly meaningful to get to kind of process it with you, which I realize not every reader is going to have that opportunity, but that made it even more powerful.
You know, I have a slight complaint
Oh,
in
yes.
in and not of you,
Oh, good.
but just 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 of the industry as a whole, like the mental health industry, right? Like,
Mhm.
um, so I put this in the book. I spent some time at a ward, right?
Huh.
And I put some time in at McLean, which is so I went through a program to
Yep.
kind of like uh not to debug me from where I was just a little over a year ago, right?
Hmm.
And I loved some of the tools, right? That they,
Yeah.
they gave me, like cognitive behavioral therapy, and
Yeah.
um I found them helpful, but what I found frustrating was how linear they made healing look,
Hmm.
and how much you know, they wrapped it in a bow at the end. Like, you're gonna have a happy ending,
Yeah.
and and I wonder how much of it is just me being too hyper cynical. I found it very, like, unpersonalized, right?
Yeah.
Uncontextualized. Like, here's your tool, and apply this, and you're gonna be great,
Right.
right? And what I wasn't prepared for was how messy and hard healing was going to be,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And how uh I wish they would have told me that, right? Is
I-
that is that something common within the industry? Is it am I coming too
So
cynical?
no, I don't think so. I mean, one, I will say as a clinician and as a consumer, I have a lot of complaints about this industry. And it's such a big industry. There are so many different therapies and sorry, the words are eluding me, but types of treatment centers. Um, I myself, if you know my writing from Substack, have dealt with anorexia on and off for 30 years.
Mhm.
I'm in a good place now, but I've had on and off treatment since I was 16. I'm 48, uh, and what I come to over and over again as a patient is that there was no intervention per se that moved me towards healing, that it was sitting with clinicians who were able to witness and show up that have made a difference, and none of it happened quickly. That it's or in a linear way, right? It's been a lot of loop de loos, and I do think cognitive behavioral techniques are useful. I have training in them. I use them in my work, but I think of them as supplemental. Um, I think it's hard to judge the whole industry because, at least now here, as I put my sort of clinician lens on, every every person who comes in looking for support is different and needs something different. So I do think there's a problem with places that come from a one size fits all model, right?
Mhm.
Those techniques, there may have been techniques that absolutely did land for you and that were helpful to you, but you also might have needed something else that wasn't available where you were, or that you weren't being seen in all of your history and all of your present needs. Um, so does that answer your question?
It does. I have a couple sub questions,
Okay.
but to your point, like what I found really frustrating, um, like I get both sides of the coin, but what I found frustrating going through like the McLean program is like we sat in group, right?
Mhm.
Where they, you know, lectured us on different kinds of tools, on like mental health tools, and they were nice, but like I wanted to be like my questions were always like, how can we make this concrete for me and my story, right?
Yeah.
And when I would start talking about my stories, like, Chris, like don't talk about like different suicidal ideations and stuff because it might trigger other people. Well, can we talk about this like outside of a group? Well, uh, our we're busy. So that's what I found like really, really
Yeah.
frustrating.
You should feel frustrated by that. I would be frustrated by that too. And it makes me think of, the other piece of my own history is that we, my son, who uh, is now 19, at 15 went to wilderness therapy for 3 months and then to a residential treatment center.
Mhm.
And actually, the care he got at wilderness therapy was stunning. He grew so much in that environment. I know it's trashed in the media, which breaks my heart. Um, and I know different programs work differently. Um, but his experience was phenomenal. And then he went to a residential treatment center, which is much more mainstream, and the experience was horrible. I mean, really, it was borderline abusive. Um,
Damn.
I wouldn't say it was abusive, but it was a very complicated experience for him and for us. And um, I think, again, it's such, you know, mental health is such a big industry, and there are so many different pockets, and a lot of them are broken. But there are also these gems that exist in there where there are clinicians who are really in there to understand and support the people they work with. And I've seen it from the inside for my son. I've seen it for myself too, with my own experience as a patient. But it's incredibly hard to find, and it's even harder to afford.
Mm.
So that's another piece of the industry that, often the people who need it the most are the ones who have the least access to good care.
And not to have like a shameless plug, right? Um, uh, it's you know I was lucky in the sense that when I was going through my shit last year, I had really good health insurance, right?
Yeah.
And I had uh, a a company or an organization that was like, "Hey, you need some time? Like, your job will still be here, right? We don't have to worry.
Mhm.
You'll still get paid. Go take time, right?"
Yeah. Yeah.
So in that sense, like I was blessed as fuck, right?
Absolutely.
But the more I started to research this, like access to mental health, it's scary how much of a gap in access there is, right? And that's why I started this like road to like how can I give back? Like I was lucky, I survived. I gonna continue to survive, but what about providing help to those that were lost or
Mhm.
are on that verge? So, I started this road to 2000, where I sold 2,000 books, and I'm going to donate 6,000 to three different organizations that provide mental health
Yeah.
care. Right, one of them being to a eating disorder organization. Not because I struggle with eating disorders, but um, you know, someone I once loved who's in the book struggled with anorexia, right?
Mm,
And, you know, she passed away earlier this year.
yeah.
Um, and it's just infuriating to know that there's such a discrepancy in access to care that,
Yeah.
like, what are people doing? How are they hanging on?
Well, I think some people don't hang on. And I mean, I saw this from the inside with our son's treatment. I mean, I won't even put the number out in terms of what we spent in a single year, but what I will say is this, that my husband was working as a full time physician. I was working as a full time PhD level clinical psychologist. And we could barely afford his care. Not a penny was covered by insurance. And, and even that, right, again, wilderness was phenomenal, but we paid through the teeth for therapy that may have been necessary, but was quite painful, and beyond imperfect. Uh, it's a broken system. And so people are just not getting treatment is, I think, what's happening out there. It's part of why there are many reasons I want to support your book, but that's one of them is that it doesn't seem like things are getting better in terms of mental health treatment availability. They're getting harder to navigate. Um, and so we all need to contribute um, if we can.
Yeah, and, you know, there's still that kinda stigma behind it, right?
Hmm.
Of mental health, especially around being so open as a dude, you know, around mental
Yeah.
health struggle. You know, like
Yep. Yep.
we're told like
Layer.
you are a man, like like you have
Deal
no
with it.
problems, right?
Yeah, deal with it.
Yeah, and and like yeah, but a man can only take so much, right? Before they crack.
A person. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, it's just anybody, right?
Right.
Um, but it's still kind of amazing how much of a taboo it is in our culture
Hmm. Well,
to
sorry. Yes, go
oh, go
ahead.
ahead.
I was just gonna say I mean, often I'll talk to people I work with about sort of the shame around needing treatment and how often, right, the strength is in saying, I need help, I need support, but that is not how our culture treats it.
Yeah, and you know, like what I what I kind of like now is as imperfect as it is. I love the fact that we now have 988, right?
Hmm. Yep.
Um, which like if you're struggling with anything, like dial that number or just you can even WhatsApp them, I think now, which is how I
Wow.
started, is just like talking with them via text message, right?
I didn't know that. Yep.
Yeah. And what I like about it is that like it's anonymous, right? You can start out anonymous and they'll be there to support you and but like I encourage people to you know just if anything start there, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Which which there's no I mean they're trained to help you, they're trained to listen to you, they're um and so there's no stigma there, right?
Right.
Where I find uh what I find difficult or what I found difficult was being able to be talk candidly about my struggles with my family, right?
Yeah.
And each came with a different lens. Like my parents, it came in from the lens of guilt. Like how come we didn't see that you were struggling uh before? And you broke, and they feel terrible, right?
Mhm.
And I don't blame them for not seeing it, because I hid my shit. Like,
Because
everything was
because of
perfect.
the shame, yes.
Yeah. So, like, I don't blame them for not seeing it, because how can they fix something they didn't see, right?
Right.
Um and now it's like they want to fix it. That's all their focus. Like, what can we do to fix it? And it's like, I don't want you to fix it. I want you to listen and just
Yeah.
be present, right? I don't need you to say anything. Like, just being able to just hear me is great.
Yep.
You know,
Witness.
um, yeah, and is presence. Presence is what I demand from everyone in my family. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean come hang out with me every day, right?
Right.
Um, it's just like, hey, like, send me a text message. How you doing today?
Yeah.
If I'm struggling, listen. You know,
Yep.
um, but and then I have my sister. As God bless her. Like, she in the book I talk about how she came and rescued me
Yeah.
from a messy situation. But my sister's a strong personality. Like, oof, like,
Uh,
she will roast you by just looking at you. Like, she's
Powerful.
just very intense person, and she's on the side of, like, well, I'm gonna give you tough love because, um like, you need that, right? Pick yourself off your bootstraps, or from your boots. I don't know what the saying is in English these days, but, like, I that kind of mentality works well in certain situations, right?
Yeah, well, it probably works for her, right? It's probably what gets her through hard situations, and I think friends and family can I mean, I've certainly watched this when I've been sort of deep in my own relapse, that friends and family want to help you, and it's very hard, I think, from their perspective to feel helpless, right? And
or
at the
or uncomfortable.
or uncomfortable, right? All of those things. I find it is helpful to try and remember that, right? And to try and step into their shoes. At the same time, I love what you said earlier, which is that it's what I demand presence from them, right? And that's
Mm.
your boundary, which is healthy, and you're communicating that, which is not easy to do, which is to say, "Hey, this is what I need from you," because you're right, they can't give it to you if they don't know that's what you need, and they may not be able to give it to you anyway, but at least it gives them a shot, and it gives you a shot of having that show up the way you need them to. Um,
And I empathize with that perspective of being someone on the other side of not knowing how to help someone who's struggling. Like, for instance, like, Ava, Ava in my book, she was my girlfriend. I met her last summer, and she struggled with anorexia.
mhm.
And I I I had never met anyone who told me straight up, like, "Hey, I'm anorexic,"
Yeah.
which she did. And I was like, "Okay." I know nothing about the struggles of someone with anorexia. And when she would tell me things like, "Hey, I feel fat today," like, my first instinct was to say,
You're
or
not.
to want to say, "You're not,"
Yeah, of
right?
course.
Uh, but that's not helpful, right?
Yeah,
Uh, and you know, I struggled a lot with what to say and how to say it,
I can imagine.
and
Yeah.
and and it kind of gives me a little bit of empathy with someone like my sister, or like a friend who may hear me talk about, like, yeah, like, there was a time where, there was a moment in my life where I didn't want to live, right?
Mhm.
It was because of psychological abuse, right? and I got brainwashed. And how do I debug myself? Like, how does my sister or a friend or my parent who's never been that close to the edge know what to say?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they don't, right?
Right.
I mean, it in some ways it's our not to put more weight on a person who's already struggling, but it is in some ways our job to communicate that. Um, I think often, right, especially if we are getting treatment and support and the people around us aren't, um, they don't they don't know. And they don't always know what they don't know, which is another complicating layer. Um, and I think, what you point out earlier, which has certainly been my experience, is it's not really about what you need to hear. It's about needing someone there beside you as you're doing your own work.
Yeah, and I understand, like, the realization I had to learn quickly is that no one's going to do the work for you, right?
No one can, right?
No, exactly, and that's what makes the whole task of healing so daunting and
Mhm.
so overwhelming, right?
Yeah.
Um, and one of the I early on, I remembered when I was frustrated with my family about, like, um, you know, them not really getting me and what and my needs and what I want for my healing is. I remember struggling with a work assignment when I lived in Madagascar, and I was
Mhm.
talking to our uh, vice president of operations, like,
Mhm.
just venting,
Yeah.
and he told me something very simple:
Mhm.
just change your service provider,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
And, like, what essentially he was saying is, like, rather than looking to the same people for the solution,
Yeah.
look somewhere else for the
Yep.
solution, right?
Great advice.
And I started doing that. It for me in changing my service provider is like, uh, I started attending the Samaritan meetings. They have meetings for suicide attempt survivors, right?
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
And they get it, right? I have other people that stood in the same ledge I stood
Yes.
and survived. They get what I'm going through, and they can hear my story and kind of know what to say, right?
Yep.
And sometimes anonymity is even better. I started playing
Mhm.
pickleball. I've written about this a
Yes.
couple times,
Yeah.
and yeah, and when I initially started playing, like, they didn't know me, they didn't know my story, but they took me in. My crew of, like, literally, there are about 50 of us in my crew, right? It,
Uh-huh.
we take over like 12 courts easily, and we rotate. We play with each other. So, like, one game, I will not have the same partner as I did the game before, right?
Okay.
And they would roast me, and they still do, by the way,
Yeah.
but they used to
Hope
too.
so.
Uh, I welcome those roastings, and uh, you know, I started opening up to them earlier this year when when she got sick,
Mhm.
and I had no idea what if she was gonna live or not. And I started telling them a little bit about my story. That bought me a little bit of diplomatic immunity on the roasting. It
Yeah. I'm sure people had to figure out how to show up in a different way.
yeah, and, you know, and they showed up, like, they were supportive on, the thing I was going when Ava was in the hospital, um, and when I told them I was writing a book, they were like, "Oh, what's it about?" And I would tell them, and they're like, "Holy shit, dude."
Yeah.
Uh, and when I had my book launch, several of them showed up to my book launch, and
It's beautiful.
um and now it's gotten back to the roasting, they
Yes.
which
Which is important. You don't want right? It's important to have humor in your connections and n sometimes be able to focus on other parts of you, right? Your struggles and your griefs are not all of the parts of you, and so it sounds like they're tuning in to that, but they're also tuning into I mean, as I've gotten to know you, it seems to me that humor is a big part. And so I actually think it's great that you've found people who can see all of these different parts of you.
yeah, and that's what I try to encourage others that are still in like still struggling
Mhm.
and or starting in their journey. Like, bro, it's gonna be messy as fuck. It's gonna be hard, but
Yes.
just find your people.
Well,
You know,
and
find.
that's exactly right. We had a conversation this morning about vulnerability, right? That
Hmm.
vulnerability is absolutely a requirement of rebuilding because you even though you're doing it the work yourself, you don't do it alone, right? You do it in relationship, but you have to find the right relationships. And vulnerability that somebody early on in my substacking life said this and it just stuck that the idea that vulnerability that isn't met with safety is dangerous, whereas vulnerability that sort of finds a safe landing spot is connecting, and that's maybe not all you need for rebuilding and healing, but I do think it's essential, and it sounds like
Yeah,
you found that in different spaces.
yeah, and it was hard to accept that my family isn't gonna understand. I love them to bits. Don't get me wrong, right? But that's the truth. They're not gonna understand unless others may have a different story. They might have a family member that is a therapist, or has similar experiences, but I don't have that, right?
Yeah.
Um, and that was and early on in my healing, I was at like a kid in a candy store. Like I wanted connection, right?
Mhm. Absolutely.
Um, and literally, like, after I got diagnosed with autism, my wife would tell me like, "Oh no, you can't go out and hang out with your friends because you have sensory issues,
Mm.
and you can't play sports because you have sensory issues." Uh, and it was a huge fight just to even go have a beer with a friend. Never mind go kick a soccer ball, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and like I used to run a lot. I used to run like 8 miles a day, like,
Uh-huh.
and initially I would fight it. Like I survived. I survived having autism, not knowing about it, but
Yep.
eventually it starts to break you down.
Yeah.
And I forgot the point that I was gonna try and make with this, but oh yeah. Um, so now that I didn't have those kinds of restrictions, I wanted to make new connections,
Mm.
and my family, being the protective people that they are, like their son and their brother just is getting out of such an abusive relationship, and almost died twice. Like, we need to protect this guy, and
Right.
so we need to protect him from the world, right? And so
Yeah.
they were, and this is what we were talking about earlier,
Yeah.
today, where they're like, you need to learn how to be by yourself. You know, that's how you're gonna fix yourself. It's like you have to be okay with yourself. I often joke with my mom. You have to. She would always tell me you have to be okay with oneself by themselves, right?
Right. Right.
And it's like, well, no, being by myself sucks right now because, like, sitting in this apartment, this is the exact spot where my wife at the time gave me a knife to tell me to kill myself, right?
Ugh. Yeah.
Uh, So no, I don't want to be here. you know,
Right.
um, by myself. And being by myself meant like replaying everything in my mind, like day in and day out. And
Yeah.
I get their point, right?
Yeah. I mean,
Vulnerability. Hmm?
they're coming from a good place of wanting to help you, but they're not understanding what you need. And I think, I don't know, my experience has been, I mean, I've written about this. I struggled for pretty much all of my adult life to be by myself. And it wasn't until I started really being honest, first in therapy, with my husband eventually, with friends about what was really happening inside and what I had really experienced, putting the mask down. It wasn't until I put the mask down with other people that I got comfortable sitting with myself, which is maybe ironic that I needed to be around other people to be able to be by myself. And you know, your family may I don't know your family. They may never trust you. They may just take a long time to trust that you're okay and that you know what you need. Um,
I, I mean, granted, I did a lot of stupid things along the way.
mhm.
Um, it um
You're not alone
like
in that.
um like being day in and day out being told you're worthless, you're an embarrassment, you should die because you're autistic. It kind of does a lot to your system,
I
right?
would so, yeah.
Uh, so and this is, I think, part of the reason why I can't take compliments too well.
Mhm.
Like my self confidence and my feeling of self worth is still in reboot mode. It
Yeah.
doesn't it doesn't you know automatically stop because she's out of my life now, right?
Right, right.
Uh,
It's gonna take you a long time to build trust too.
yeah,
Not her specifically, right? She's not in your life, but with closeness. I mean, she was your wife for a lot of years.
yeah. I mean, yeah, it would have like 10 years,
Yeah.
and I'm still angry, like
Mhm.
um, like how can you do that to someone you supposedly say you loved, right?
Right.
And I didn't put this in the book, but um, like shortly after we got married, uh, she she got diagnosed with uh pancreatic cancer, and I took care of her through that. Like we got Medivac and everything, and like I supported you through that.
Mhm.
Now I got diagnosed with autism, and all of a sudden I'm the enemy. Like
Yeah.
uh like I'm and for a long time I resisted getting diagnosed with autism because I'm like my perception of autism was the Rain Man. No
Mhm.
joke. No joke. That was my
Really?
perception of the Rain Man, or of autism, right?
Yep.
And and she's the one when she started with her special education journey, she was the one that said, get tested, get tested. I think you may be autistic.
Mhm.
So that's the part that makes me even angrier, right? It's like
Yeah.
you're the one that pushed me to get tested. I was fine. Like I okay, I felt a little funny, I felt a little weird. Um I was I didn't know it at the time, but I was severely masking, and I could pass as normal, right?
Right.
Um so like you push for this, and now as soon as I get tested just to shut you up, you're gonna say this. You're gonna do this,
She
right?
weaponized it. Right.
Yeah. So so I did my best to be objective on presenting the facts. Like
Mhm.
I tried to not put my emotion and anger in outlining the facts, but like it's there. It's anger. And I think at one point we were talking, and I told you, like, part of me wants revenge, right?
Yeah.
And I think what I meant more than anything is I want justice, right?
Yeah.
I I want, rather than revenge, like I want you to have
To know.
consequences, or actions have consequences, and I want
Mhm.
you to have those consequences, right?
Yeah.
And maybe it's good enough that I just have my story out there and that's justice enough, but I don't think you should be teaching kids with autism after what you try to do with me, right? If you did that to me, what are you doing to those kids?
Yeah, that is actually very scary. And yeah, I mean, I like that idea of justice versus revenge, right? And I think it's very human to continue to feel anger in the aftermath of what you went through. I also think it's useful for you to think about, like, what do you, right? What do you need? And I think maybe this book is part of it, right? Is putting your reality out there, and then using that to help people struggling either in ways you've struggled or ways people you have loved have struggled, right? So you're taking that, you're channeling that emotion, and which is still going to be there, of course, but you're using it to put something good into the world. And I just think that's very powerful.
Oh, you have you. I know you're. Um, it's very terrifying to put something like this in the world and to know it's out there, right?
Yeah,
It.
I have my own story I'm working to put out there, and uh, sometimes it wakes me up at 3:30 in the morning with a start of like, what am I doing? I can't do this. This doesn't make any sense, especially when you've spent so much of your life masking and
Mhm.
tucking it away because you think other people are going to judge you for it, right? But I also think it's it's um it's impactful for me to watch you do it, and also to recognize my own reaction to your experience, which is that it feels, when I'm doing it, it feels absolutely terrifying. When you're doing it, I look at it and I think, and sorry, I'm going to compliment you. But
You're on 13 now. I'm counting.
oh, it's it's courageous to do that in an effort. I mean, it really is. It's therapeutic for you, and it has the potential to reach other people that may not be reached otherwise. So
Can
you're walking through your fear to try and help other people.
can I ask you a question?
You can.
And you don't have to answer if you don't want to.
Okay.
Um, but I'll preface it with this, right? And so for me, Ava was such a tragic character, right?
Mhm.
Um, not because she passed, but I think the most tragic component of it was that she really was a, like, wonderful soul, right?
Yeah.
Um, she, I mean, yeah, she struggled with her demons, right?
Mhm.
Um, but she did her best to show up for others when
Yeah.
they were feeling low. She had a biting sense of humor and a sense of style that was uh, very, for lack of a better term, eclectic, right?
Okay.
Uh, and she got a lot of compliments for her. Like she had a guitar, or a purse in the shape of a guitar that everyone would be like, "Hey, I love that. I
Yeah.
love that fucking purse," and it was great. It was a Telecaster.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and the biggest tragedy for me in her story is, like you, she went through a lot of treatment,
Yeah.
uh, and she she never saw herself as worth it to for any of the treatment she went through to stick,
Mhm.
right? She didn't
Mhm.
see how worth it she really was, and how much of a beautiful person she was, how much of a beautiful soul she was, right? And my question to you is, someone who's on that ledge and that perspective, right?
Mhm.
Um, like what components of your treatment stuck for you, or what made it stick for you?
Mhm.
And what kind of advice would you have for others that kind of feel the same as her?
Yeah. Well, that's a big question. Um, and the therapist in me is looking at the clock going, "Oh no. I have I have a patient at 11. How am I gonna answer this?" But there are 2 things that come to mind. So, one one is a little bit of luck and a little bit of skill, which is that I have worked over the course of my life with 3 individual psychotherapy clinicians, and each one of them has been instrumental in my healing, even though they didn't necessarily know it at the time, right? Again, it was never a technique. It was people who were sitting with me. It took me 6 years of working with my current therapist to say, "This is what I'm struggling with." It was buried under so much shame. I couldn't let the mask down even with my therapist, who I respected and trusted. Um, and ultimately, well, I won't say ultimately. First, I will never say I am recovered and I'm not going to go back, because I've done this enough to know it's a vulnerability, and
Mhm,
I hope I never go back to it. But um, so some of it was just the luck of connecting with clinicians that were skilled and present, um, and just were able to sit with me through it. Um, I also will say what moved the needle for me was working with a couples clinician, my husband and I, when I was sort of deep in my most recent relapse, who introduced us to internal family systems,
mhm,
which I had heard of as a therapist, but I'd never really been exposed to. And there's probably not enough time to go into it, but essentially, it it supposes that we all are built of different parts, and some of those parts, while they look different from the outside, are universal. So we all have a core intact self that is sort of the healthy version of ourselves. We have all have exiles, the parts of ourselves that were hurt when we were young that need protection. And then we all have protector parts that are designed to kind of help these exiles feel safe. So, what that language did for me was be able to feel compassionate for this younger part inside of me, the exile, who I call little me, uh, to see her with a through a lens of compassion. And I don't think I had ever felt. I feel a lot of compassion for other people, but I don't think I was ever able to feel it for myself. It was just buried beneath layers of shame.
mm,
And being able to see that little girl that I was once, that is still sort of lives inside of me, as hurt and wounded and in need of protection, and then being able to see that my eating disorder self as someone who, really got in my way, but also really was born to protect me, allowed me to also feel compassionate for that. And that allowed me to speak about it honestly and authentically. And, um, it wasn't like, a magic turning point, but I think that set the stage for a more organic recovery,
Hmm.
uh, that that also gave me a shared language with my husband who was doing his own work, kind of identifying his own protector parts. It 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 allowed him to understand my experience without when he had never been able to like, his experience around my anorexia previously had essentially been, "Just eat. Like, why don't you just eat more?" I don't understand, right? "You'll be fine soon if you eat more." And I couldn't, and he couldn't understand, and so that sort of shared language became a bridge that he could really internally kind of get it. Oh, like, I do things too that are not in my service, that are upsetting to other people because I'm trying to protect my vulnerable parts. So, I hopefully that answers your question. Um, in
And
in terms
it
of
does.
what I would offer to other people going through it, oof, that's a harder one because I think I mean, how I think as a clinician is the rebuilding process, the recovery process, whatever you want to call it, it's never one size fits all, right? You have to find the right fit. Sometimes it is a treatment center where you have to nourish your body first because a lot of this work you can't do if you're malnourished. It's just not
Hmm.
right. So, um, part of my getting better this last round was working with a nutritionist. Right. The sort of initial work is, yeah, you gotta get calories in because you gotta get your brain online. And then when you get your brain online, you can do the work of digging deeper. Um, so it's really I think the hardest part is it's not one size fits all.
It's one of those things I feel like it's so personal, right? And it's so
Yeah.
like that. There's a saying for autism. Like if you meet someone with autism, that's it. You know someone with autism because it's so like
Yeah,
I'm so different than someone else, right?
correct.
And your
Yeah.
story is a lot different than Ava's was, right?
Yep.
It's so
Yep.
personal.
And so much of it is I mean, I have no doubt there's a genetic component to it too. Some of it is probably physiological, but we all carry different stories and different connections with our in our early relationships that impact how it gets you know
Hmm.
it impacts our mental health and everybody's story. There's so many connections underneath, but everybody's story is different. And I think maybe that was some of your just tying it back to your experience um, at McLean is when we're not treated as individuals, but as sort of one size fits all, it can leave us feeling pretty isolated. Um,
Hmm.
so I am going to pull my therapist, um,
Yeah, I was
with
gonna
this
say like,
that.
how do we land the plane now? Because you said
Yeah.
something at 11. Um, real quick, how do people find you? By the way, your writing is fascinating. I love your writing. Um, yeah. So
And
how do people find you?
And just for number 14, I love yours so much. Um, I am on Substack as the therapist who came undone, and I am anonymous for now, as I'm working to move my memoir, hopefully, to publication. And then at some point, I will probably um, identify myself on Substack too, but I'm not quite ready to do that.
Wait, which is why you're still in the witness protection program. I get it.
Correct. And I
Yeah.
appreciate you're not blowing my cover today.
Oh, we don't know each other.
uh,
I
well,
have no idea who you are. I'm just kidding.
yeah, well, we
No,
did it, but now we do.
yeah.
And thank you for asking me to join you, and thank you for um, sharing your book with me and for putting it out in the world to help other people. Um,
And ditto, thank you for being an ally for
Oh,
me, and just and being a reader, and for being my first guest
oh,
on
I
anything.
I'm honored. So thank you.
All right, my friend. Thank
Okay.
you, and go see your clients now.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
All right, take it easy.
You too. Bye.
Bye.